Hello everybody, this is Marcello from Vito, Italy. Welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk About Italy. Tonight we will talk about the rise of Caesar. Uh, Many of you probably don't know about the history of Rome before Caesar, but now we are coming to a character in the time that maybe you are more confident with. Welcome back. I would love to hear your comments, and this is the first installment for our American and Canadian friends, and or maybe also some British. And next week we'll have a second installment for our Singaporean and Taiwanese and Chinese friends. Okay, so let's start with some updates about Italy. Okay. Yes, here we are. This is the guy. We should have a new government in a short time. The guy on the left is our President of the Republic, Mr. Sergio Mattarella, whom you probably know because I talked about him in a blog in our blog a few months ago. And the guy on the right is Mr. Mario Draghi. Mario Draghi is a former governor of Bank of Italy, a former governor of the Bank of Europe. So he's a top guy. He's been called by the President of the Republic, Mattarella, because we had a crisis of government, and you remember we had Mr. Conte as the Prime Minister, but his majority crushed, and now we need to have a new government. So Mr. Mattarella chose probably the most known and respected guy abroad, because Mr. Draghi is very well known in Europe and probably also overseas. And we hope that he will form a new government very soon, because we are still in the middle of the pandemic and we need a guide. We need somebody to guide us through this treacherous and difficult times. Let me go on. Okay. Just if you can be patient a little bit. Looks like it's not working. Okay, let me see if it works. Okay, here we are. What is this? Most of you know it. It's the Coliseum. The Coliseum is open again. It's been closed for some time now, for 3 months, November, December, and January. But at the end, they have opened it again. The government has given the go for opening most museums around Italy. And so all the top attractions are open. Obviously, there are no tourists, but open for Italians. And so the Galleria degli Uffizi in Florence is open. Galleria di Brera in Milan is open. Also, almost everything. The Museum of Archaeology in Naples is open. Well, we hope that they will stay open, but we are quite, I would say, we look forward to the next months, and looks like that's going to be at the end of the year. We're going to be out of this mess, and probably we'll be back to a somewhat normal life. We hope so. Yes, we're talking about vaccines. Vaccines in Italy. You probably know, reading your newspapers, that we are quarreling with pharmaceutical companies. primarily AstraZeneca, which promised to deliver some quantities, but has already said that it's not delivering the whole quantity, but half of it, and so to whole Europe, or not only in Italy, to Italy. So we are now in the process of redesigning the plan, and so the second shot, because you need a second shot. The new doses which we are coming in now are probably going for a second shot. So there's going to be a delay in these first months, but according to the government and according to the European Union and according to the pharmaceutical companies, Pfizer, Moderna, and AstraZeneca, the pace of delivery, the quantities delivered in the next few months are going to increase. So there's still a goal to have 2/3 of the population being vaccinated by the end of August, and I really hope so. I really hope so because our activity depends on what will go on, what will happen with vaccines. So we have already, I told you last time that we have already decided to resume activity by September, and we are in the process of organizing a couple of tours, guided tours in September and October. But I was going to do that, but obviously this slowing down of vaccines is not nice for us, and so I need some more time to decide whether to issue a plan and the final dates for these tours in September and October, and I hope to be able to do it by next time when we in a couple of weeks. But stay updated, please stay on our Facebook update on our Facebook page, and I will put everything on the page so that you know, and the moment we start you will know it. Many of you will know it via our newsletter. So the best thing to do is subscribe to our website, to our newsletter, and this way you'll be updated right away. Okay, so after a small introduction about what's going on here, it's time for going on with the history of Italy. My plan is I was reviewing the plan just today, and I think that we're going to hold this 2-week schedule until the end of the year. So we will definitely cover the history of Italy until at least the 1600, the 17th century, more or less, which is the time until when Italy plays a decisive role in the history of Europe. Then mostly with the Pope. So I hope that I will be able to cover most of the history of Italy. But my plan is also to cover some issues about art or everyday life in the Middle Ages, or I don't know, the organization of the Roman army, or legends about Rome. More issues. So we'll go on as long as we can. We do have time, and I can tell you right now that we'll be online. So it's time to talk about what's going on in the 2nd century in BC in Italy. And But before that, before I begin, let me answer to some of the comments I have received for the early episodes. Marcello, we thought we would see monuments and also talk about Roman art, the Coliseum and the Pantheon. And what about that? You're talking about history and you're showing us only maps and drawings, okay? Well, the answer is very simple. Ancient Romans were so practical and severe, not comparable with the Greeks, obviously, and they did not feel the need to involve themselves into the search of beauty, into art. Okay, it's only from the imperial period, thanks to Augustus, that Rome and its ever larger territory will be enriched with the works of art. So until now, I have not shown you any works of art or any architecture, because in the period we have dealt with so far, there are none. If you go to Rome, you see the Coliseum, 1st century AD. You'll see the Trajan column, 2nd century. You see the Forum, 1st century. You see the Arapacis, 1st century AD. So until now, if you go to Rome and look for archaeological remains from the 1st century BC backwards, you'll find nothing. That's why. So I have to rely on some maps and some drawings. Tonight you will see some portraits, which is a particular kind of art in which the Romans were very good at, and the art of portraying is something which is really peculiar of Rome. So you start seeing something about that. But obviously, from the time then when we talk about Augustus and then the emperors, then we will see some pictures, and we will talk about something you can really actually see when you come to Italy. Okay, so then I will show you many examples of that. So back to history. At the end of the 3rd century, Rome rules the Western Mediterranean. Here, you probably see on the left side is the Western Mediterranean. Let me see, because I do have some problems with my map. Okay. Sure. Okay. Well. Oh, here it is. Okay. Good. Here is the laser pointer. Okay. Okay. Rome rules the Western Mediterranean. Okay. So we talked about Carthage. We talked about Spain. We talked about Gallia, the northern Italy, obviously Sicily, Sardinia, and now it's time to go east. Okay. During the 2nd century, Rome goes east. Well, first of all, at the end of 190 BC, Rome defeats Antiochus of Syria in the Battle of Magnesia and seizes all his possessions in Asia Minor. That's present-day Turkey. Okay. In 168, the Romans defeat the Macedonians at Pydna and divide the Macedonia. You see Macedonia here. Divide the Macedonian kingdom into 4 republics, independent. Then, after a rebellion in 148, they turn Macedonia into a province, and shortly afterwards they will do that with again with Greece. Some autonomy will be granted only to Athens and Sparta, and we already talked about it last time. In 146, after 3 years of war, Roman legions will burn Carthage to the ground, and the territory of the city becomes the province of Africa here. Okay, and the kingdom of Numidia is an ally of Rome. Okay, okay. So far, the Republic has triumphed over all his enemies: Carthage, the Gauls, the Spanish tribes, Macedonia, Greece, the kingdom of Syria. So it has won all the wars, okay? And now it's time, after 146, it's time to finally catch its breath and savor the last triumphs. But it will be a short time, because Rome is already seeking new lands to conquer. And Romans start to reflect on what this transformation from a city-state to a multinational empire means to the social fabric of the Republic. Now we have two opposing factions here in Rome. The Optimates, who have proclaimed themselves, the ones on top here, they have to proclaim themselves as the best among the aristocrats, and they dominate the Senate. And the Populares, the representatives, they call themselves the representatives of the people, who use their influence in assemblies to challenge the oligarchy. Now, it's to 107, and the Popular Assembly, which you know ultimately rules Rome, or has to prove the decisions of the Senate, which is favored by the inaction of the Senate, because many senators at the time are being accused of corruption. They elect as consul a new man, homo novus. Homo novus is somebody who is not belonging to aristocracy, and his name is Gaius Marius, this guy. Okay. Now I was talking about the portraits. This is the first portrait that we see. Well, we saw Hannibal, we saw Scipio. You see that it is very realistic. If you compare it with the portraits in Egypt, or the first, or even in Greece, they are very, very beautiful, but they are idealistic. But the Romans love to portray people with their true characteristics. This is not a handsome man. He's also quite old, but he is probably the true Gaius Marius. Okay, so Caius Marius, Rome at that time, is at war with the king of Numidia. You remember Numidia before, in Africa. His name is Jugurtha. And until then, those who enlisted had to provide their equipment at their own expense. So a minimum wealth was needed, at least the property of some land. Okay. But to fight Jugurtha, Marius recruits an army in which, for the first time, property as a condition for military service is abolished. And this is new, because this was an army. These were Roman armies up to now were armies of soldiers, farmers. Okay, so people would go back. After the campaign, where they would go back to their land, only to find it occupied or in ruin, because they had been away for years. So the farmers had very serious problems. Most of them had disappeared, had to become servants, because they were in ruin. They were very poor. So, from now on, and with Marius, enlistment is voluntary, and every citizen who does not own anything can enlist. and also he doesn't have to provide for his arms and his armor because he has no income, he has no wealth, he has nothing. So the state will equip them. Okay, and this is new again. So until this time, if you looked at the Roman army, you would see people equipped with many kinds of armors and arms and helmets, because everybody would have his own weapon, his own armor, his own helmet. Now it becomes more standardized. The state, I would say, buys huge quantities from artisans, huge quantities of armaments, of armors to equip the tens of thousands of soldiers Rome has on the field. So you may say that the initiative is motivated by a democratic spirit, but it's mainly due to the fact that with the disappearance of small landowners, it is increasingly difficult to complete the legions by simply enlisting citizens owners, obviously. And also the army is in serious need with soldiers, because it suffered many casualties in the war in the previous years against the Cimbri and the Teutoni. They were Germanic populations who had invaded Gaul. Okay, so the consequences of Marius' reform will be dramatic in the following years, and we will see later on when we talk about Julius Caesar. Because the political leaders who command the armies will develop very close ties with the soldiers of their legions. The legions will become more loyal to their commanders than to the state, and their leaders will use them against their political enemies. Once again, we'll see it with Caesar. So only 20 years after this reform, the Roman Republic will be shaken to its foundations by the Civil War. Here you can see the armament, okay? This is standardized. This is the armament in the 1st century BC. It will change later on, but also Marius did another thing. In order to have the legion not weighed down by carts and other equipment, Marius soldiers had were trained to carry their own armaments and all the equipment, and they were called Marius Mules. But we'll talk about the Roman army in another episode. Well, another guy here, because actually there was little to fight in Africa. You remember Jugurtha? As a young nobleman, Lucius Sylla, this guy here, induced Jugurtha's father-in-law to deliver the king to the Romans. And in the following years, Rome was torn apart by civil unrest between Marius' followers, the populares, remember, and those of Sylla and the aristocracy, because Sylla was backed by the aristocracy. And in a climate of great violence, Sylla eventually prevailed, and after physically eliminating all the opponents, almost all the opponents, and we are talking about thousands of opponents, physically killing them and sending the rest into exile, he is self-appointed dictator indefinitely and established a regime of terror. Well, Sylla's dictatorship was the first step towards monarchy, based on the control of armies, and we'll see what will happen later on with Caesar and Augustus, the importance of this decisiveness of the army. Although apparently the Sylla regime was legal. And with a series of laws, Sylla started to redesign the architecture of the Republic, with the obvious aim of consolidating the authority of the Senate and of the aristocratic class, to which he belonged. For many decades, a law had forbidden to introduce an army within the city boundaries, the city of Rome. Okay? Now, Sylla, to prevent other generals from doing what he himself had done, namely occupy Rome with soldiers and impose his rule, he extended the ban to all peninsular Italy, whose borders on the north were the rivers Magra, south of Lucca, and Rubicon, north of Ariminum here, okay? So Rubicon is going to play a great part in Roman history very shortly. And okay, and now in 79, surprising everyone, Sylla returns the supreme power to the Senate and the supreme power, and retires to private life, and he dies in 78. By now, however, the future of the state was in the hands of politicians, military leaders, whose armies, like for Sylla, were more loyal to someone who could best defend their interest than the state. And after Sylla's death, power theoretically returned to the Senate. But the Senate itself was so weak and leaned on two lieutenants of Sylla. And they were, at the time, the most powerful individuals in Rome, Pompeius and Crassus. Marcus Licinius Crassus, from a very rich family, he had become even richer with the confiscations during Sylla's time. And this wealth allowed him to play a major political role. In 73, slaves at the gladiator school in Capua, they were obviously armed and well prepared, they revolted. They were led by a slave from Thrace, Spartacus, who knew the Roman military tactics because he had fought in the Roman army. And starting with a small group of skilled fighters, the revolt quickly spread to large areas of southern Italy. This is the movie Spartacus, the TV series Spartacus, and this is a statue of Spartacus in the Louvre in France, in Paris. Okay, so starting with a small group of skilled fighters, the revolt quickly spread to large areas of southern Italy. It was a clear sign of the desperation of thousands of slaves, and Rome had hundreds of thousands of slaves, because when it conquered a state, a city, then all citizens were sold as slaves. So there was a huge market across the Republic, the territories of the Republic. But surprisingly, the revoltants were joined by many peasants and many small farmers, because for many Roman citizens, the living conditions were so poor that they chose to join the slaves. To fight this war, which is called Guerra Servile, Bellum Servile, that is a servile, so slave war. Okay, the Senate gave Crassus the command of 8 legions, and probably some of them he financed them himself. He was so rich. And after a great battle in Apulia, in which Spartacus died in 71, the war was over, but the end was terrible. Crassus had 6,000 prisoners crucified along the Appian Way. So the other protagonist of this year is this guy, Pompeius. After being a supporter of Sylla in 76, he was sent to Spain to fight the Roman governor Sertorius, who ruled his provinces as an independent king. And after taming the revolt, he came back and signed a pact with Crassus. Both would be consuls in the following year. And so it happened. But it was Pompeius that the Senate appointed as leader of a great army to fight pirates in the eastern Mediterranean. So now back to the map. You remember the eastern Mediterranean, and the pirates were menacing the trade routes from Greece to the Middle East. So he was appointed commander, and he was given extraordinary powers, and an army of 120,000 soldiers and 500 ships. Huge, okay? So with this force, Pompeius got rid of the pirates very fast. He cleared the sea routes in what, a few weeks, and then he was ordered to turn against the king Mithridates of Pontus here, okay? So here is the area of the pirates, and here is the Pontus and the king Mithridates. So he turned against King Mithridates, and but he also went beyond his mandate. He defeated King Mithridates. He subdued a part of Armenia. He entered the Caucasus. He annexed Syria, and he intervened between two heir brothers to the throne of Judea, and he made it a tributary state. And we will talk also about Judea, because the story of the Romans in Judea, in Jerusalem, in what is now Israel, is very fascinating. The history also of Jesus Christ and his life at the times of the Romans in Israel. So now, as you can see, the Eastern Mediterranean was controlled directly or indirectly, and Pompeius acted without even caring to be authorized by the Senate. He acted on his own initiative as a monarch. He deposed kings, he created others, he set territories as Roman provinces, he allowed other territories to remain independent under Rome's control, which was also a way for him to obtain the future support of these kings. So this meant that the Senate, which traditionally had the responsibility of foreign policy, was losing power, and it also set a precedent that other generals would follow. At this point, it was evident that in Rome's policy, conquest and exploitation prevailed over anything else. Now, Rome didn't make war to defend itself. It made war to conquer. That's a fact. So it no longer needed to justify its aggressive policy, since there was not a public opinion anymore. Rome was the most powerful state in the Mediterranean, and thus, they thought, had the right to dominate all other peoples and establish a universal empire. So, back to Pompeius. Now he was immensely rich. But he came back to Italy. He landed in Brindisi, Brundisium, and he dissolved the army as he was legally compelled to do so. You remember, he cannot have an army in the Italian territory. Okay, and he returned to Rome. It's 62 BC. He thought that his popularity and influence were so great to guarantee him the undisputed supremacy of this state. But he was wrong. Now that he did not have an army to back him, senators thought that he was not so dangerous after all. The decisions he had taken in the East were not validated, and his veterans were not granted all the lands that he had promised them. So he was a great disappointment for Pompeius. And due to this, he turned against the Senate, and he looked for the help of an old friend, Crassus, and through him to Marius' nephew, remember Marius, who was now the leader of the Populares. His name was Julius Caesar. At last, here we are. This is the man. Caius Julius Caesar. Caius Julius Caesar in Latin. You know that Caesar is the root from which the words Kaiser in German and Tsar in Russian come. They all come from Caesar. And so Caesar came from a poor aristocratic family, which traced its origin to the king Anco and to the goddess Venus. He was probably born in 100 BC, and he was Marius' nephew, and his family ties put him among the Populares. You remember? The faction opposed to the Optimates. Caesar was a perfect man of the times. He was elegant, he was unscrupulous, and he was full of humor. At that time, the contrast between the senatorial faction and the popular faction was very violent. And in 74, Caesar, to escape his family, the enemies, he left for Cilicia. Cilicia is a land in the east, more or less where the same land where which Pompeius had freed from the pirates. So, but still, a pirate boat captured it at sea, and pirates demanded 20 talents for his ransom. Caesar insolently replied that it was too low a price for his value, and that he preferred to give them 50. He sent his servants to get them. While in prison, he wrote verses and read them to the pirates, but also promised to hang them when he would be freed. Which he did, because as soon as he was freed, he ran to Miletus, rented some boats, chased the pirates, and captured them, took his money back, and had all of them slaughtered. Now, Caesar belonged to an ancient family, and his relationships, together with some good marriages and the huge number of votes he bought, secured him a series of important public offices. Finally, in 69 BC, he was appointed proconsul, that is, governor of Spain. Here, he subdued the peoples of the area and brought back to Rome a loot so big that the Senate granted him a triumph. Back in Rome, Caesar proposed to Crassus and Pompeius to forge a three-party secret partnership that historians will call the First Triumvirate. The word comes from the Latin word vir, which means man. So triumvirate means pact of three men. So each of the three would maneuver the masses of followers at their disposal and pass laws for the benefits of all three. Of the three men, Caesar, as you he was not obviously the richest, and was the least important and influential, and therefore he benefited most from this pact. With the support of his new allies, he was elected consul for the year 59. Immediately, he had Pompeius' decisions in the east ratified and lands distributed to Pompeius' veterans. Then, to consolidate the alliance, he gave Pompeius his daughter Julia as a wife. He then appointed himself proconsul, that's governor, of the provinces of Gallia for 5 years. It had never happened before, because proconsuls were appointed for just 1 year. But in this way, he could undertake a long military campaign without having to give up command, and his conquest would make him as popular as Pompeius, as well as provide his soldiers with opportunities, huge opportunities of enrichment. Here is Gallia, current France and Belgium, okay? Gallia. You see, Gallia Cisalpina is what they call the Gaul within the Alps, okay? This is the other province, Roman province, Gallia Narbonense, from Narbo. Narbo is the capital. So Gallia for the Romans before Caesar were these two provinces. And the Gauls belonged to the great family of Celtic peoples and were divided into probably about 50 tribes, 50 peoples. They lived in large villages, and their economy was based primarily on agriculture, on cattle breeding, and on iron and metal working in general. And the various tribes were always at war with each other. It resembles more or less the history of the American Indians, natives. And in Caesar's time, Roman merchants traveled extensively across the region. It was often they who provided the general with directions and news. So Caesar focused on these divisions. He only had for all the territory 4 legions, not even 30,000 soldiers. And just as he took over, 400,000 Helvetii were heading for Gallia Narbonense. From Switzerland, Helvetii are the people from Switzerland. In fact, it's called Helvetia. Switzerland was called, that region was called Helvetia by the Romans. And let me tell you this: when you see car plates in Europe, you probably see that the car plates in the Swiss car plates show a sign, a CH, with a CH, okay? This is due to the fact that, as you know, in Switzerland they speak 3 languages. One is German, which is a dialect, a German dialect. They write German, but they speak a German dialect. They write and speak French, and they write and speak Italian. But how could you sort out the car plate? Because S in Europe is Sweden, not Switzerland. So they decided to use the Latin word, which is saying that, calling themselves the Confederation of the Helvetii. And so in Latin is Confederatio Helvetia. So that's CH. Well, back to the Helvetii, 400,000 Helvetia heading for Gallia Narbonense. and 150,000 Germans. Let me see here. Here, from Helvetii, here. And 150,000 Germans are trying are crossing the Rhenus and trying to invade Gallia Belgica. So, this is the goals. Obviously, people of the woods, people used to live and fight in very cold weather, and so several Gallic tribes asked for Rome's protection, and Caesar, without even notifying the Senate, enlisted another 4 legions at his own expense. The 2 campaigns were dazzling. He beat the Helvetii, despite their enormous superiority, so hard that they asked for permission to withdraw to their homeland, and Caesar allowed it, as long as they accepted to be subjected to Rome. And even the Germans were annihilated, literally annihilated in a battle. So, the underestimated woman chaser turned out to be a formidable general on the battlefield, with an instinctive tactical genius, but also with absolute contempt for human life. Caesar's conquest in Gaul made him equal to his associates, both for his military reputation and for his financial resources. In the dispatches he sent home, and which will be regrouped into his book De Bello Gallico, about the war in Gaul, Caesar thrilled his fellow citizens with reports of the Rhine crossing in the campaign against the Germans and the exploration of Britannia. I'm sure you recognize this speck of land on the coast of Great Britain. And these acts had little strategic value, but their purpose was to increase his own legend. Now, back to Italy. This is a piazza del teatro in Lucca, okay? And obviously you can see that this is a theater. This is an amphitheater, Piazza dell'Anfiteatro, sorry. And this is an amphitheater, okay, which was turned into an oval piazza in medieval times. So I'm showing this picture because in Lucca in 56, Caesar met once again with Crassus and Pompeius, and the three decided that Caesar's proconsulate would be renewed for another 5 years, while Crassus and Pompeius would be consuls in 55. So after the consulate, first Crassus would have the government of Syria, and from here he could earn that military glory that he lacked, unlike Pompeius and Caesar. And second, Pompeius would obtain the government of the 2 provinces of Spain, with the command of some legions. And now, the 3 political leaders had absolute power, but it was evident that sooner or later the struggle for power would blaze again. And in 54, the agreement began to weaken. The strength of the Triumvirate laid in the fact that neither of its members could stand against the other 2. But the unstable balance was broken when Crassus' army was annihilated by the party, the Iranians, at Kara in 53. This is a picture of the party cavalry with the archers on horse defeating the Roman army. And Crassus was killed, and his head was exhibited in a court play. So now Crassus would not be a counterweight anymore, in case Caesar and Pompeius had quarreled. And back in Gaul, Caesar, to show the Germans the power of Rome, had a wooden bridge built in 10 days on the Rhine, made a foray into Germanic territory, and after returning to the left bank of the river, destroyed the bridge. And in 55 and then in 54, he landed again in Britain and advanced up to the Thames. Never had a Roman army gone so far north. His fame in Rome and Italy was enormous. But in 52, a general uprising united all peoples of Gaul against the Roman occupation, under the command of a young nobleman, Vercingetorix. The guy here, Vercingetorix. This is a colossal statue of Vercingetorix near the site of the ancient town of Alesia. And so Vercingetorix stood with his forces between Caesar in the south and his army in the north. With a few soldiers, Caesar crossed the Alps and marched north into enemy country. He walked day and night in the snow and finally managed to reach his troops. But at this time he was alone, one against 10 in a hostile country. And he decided to play it all, marching on Alesia, the city where Vercingetorix had amassed his army, and besieged it. From all parts of Gallia, the Gauls rushed to free their captain. 250,000 Gauls against 4 Roman legions. So Caesar ordered his soldiers to raise 2 lines of defense, 2 valli, one towards the besieged city, and the other outwards, facing the incoming force. And among them, he's put his soldiers with the few ammunition and food supplies they still had. You see here, they are building the battle. But after a week of desperate resistance on 2 fronts, the Romans were starving. But the Gauls were in anarchy. They began to retreat, tribe by tribe. And Vercingetorix himself, he came out of the city, exhausted, to ask for grace. Caesar granted grace to the city, but the rebels became the property of the legionaries, who sold them as slaves. The unfortunate captain, Vercingetorix, was taken to Rome, and the following year he followed Caesar's chariot in chains during his triumph. After 1 million dead and another million enslaved, Gaul became a Roman province. The region quickly turned Roman. Roman citizenship was granted only 100 years later under Emperor Claudius. And this is an example of the Roman architecture in Arles, in southern France, to show you how the Gaul was turned into Rome territory very, very fast and very thoroughly. Now, Caesar's enemy in the Senate opposed to his ambition to return to Rome. But with the resources of Gaul at his disposal, he planned to gain consulship again for the year 48. But he had to get it in absentia, that is, not being there, without showing up in Rome. Because coming back to Rome before being nominated as consul was too dangerous for Caesar. He could have been prosecuted and therefore eliminated without the immunity granted by his current command in Gaul, and especially without the protection of his legions. And his adversaries now, they turned to Pompeius and they tried to convince him that Caesar was not his ally but his rival. And there were clashes between rival gangs in Rome, and it was impossible to elect the consuls for the years 54 and much of 53. And followers of the Populares even set the Senate on fire. And to restore order in 52, the Senate had Pompeius nominated only consul. That is, one consul. You remember, consuls were all the time there were two in order to counter each other. Okay, it's a balance of power. But now Pompeius is the only consul, so it's also probably the absolute ruler in Rome. And they also granted him the office of proconsul governor in Spain for 5 years. Now that even the Senate has the resolve to invoke Pompeius' help, there was only one obstacle between him and absolute power: Caesar and his legions. It was a dead end, and the general feeling was that the civil war was about to break out. So Pompeius again proposed a law according to which anyone competing for consulship should be in the city, and had the assembly side surrounded by his troops. And needless to say, the General Assembly approved this law. So Caesar, at this point, had to go to Rome as a private citizen, far from his army. This would have made him completely helpless, whereas Pompeius, on the pretext of maintaining public order, kept troops in Italy and near Rome itself. And under pressure from Pompeius, the Senate officially ordered Caesar to dismiss his army by March 1st. We are at the beginning of January. The year is 49. By March 1st, Caesar has to dismiss his army. Otherwise, he would be declared a traitor. For Caesar, as he had always shown, attack was always the best defense. He had 8 legions in Gaul, but only 1 station in Ravenna, and could provide a maximum of 5,000 men. But Caesar knew that because of the political divisions within Roman society, he was a hero for the Populares, and he would be hailed everywhere in Italy as the champion of the people. So, back to our map. This is Ravenna, okay? This is where Caesar has his legion of 5,000 men. And here he spoke to his legionaries. He called them milites. That's not milites, sorry. He didn't call them milites, soldiers, but commilitones, comrades. And he asked if they felt like fighting against Rome. After all, it was their homeland. And if they lost, they would have been called traitors. But they answered yes, all of them. On January 11th, Caesar ordered the legion to march from Ravenna, 40 kilometers, and camp on the north bank of the Rubicon River, which marked the border between Gaul and Italy. You see here, the Rubicon River, okay? This is Italy, this is Gaul. And arriving at the Rubicon, he stopped on the shore to reflect. The river itself is a tiny river, and it did not represent a physical obstacle, but it was a tremendous psychological barrier. It marked the border of Italy, where leading an army was unlawful. if you remember, we talked about Sylla passing a law due to which you cannot lead an army within Italy's boundaries. By crossing the Rubicon, Caesar would no longer be a servant of the Republic, but an enemy. Around midnight on January 12, 49 BC, he made his decision. With the famous motto, Alea iacta est, the die is cast, he crossed the river, starting the civil war. Even though the Republic was formally still alive, its fate was set. Whoever won between Caesar and Pompeius would have abolished the Republic. Okay, that's all for today. I thank you very much once again for watching this video with me, my presentation, and I hope I could entertain you, and you will find the recordings of this presentation, of this episode on Facebook, so you can watch it again whenever you want, and I hope to see you for episode 4 in 15 days. Thank you very much for your attention. Grazie a tutti, and see you soon. Bye bye. Ciao ciao. Have a nice weekend. Bye.